Oh, the ripples in the middle of the lake. Oh crap. That's an extinct animal. I can't talk. Hey there, welcome back to Odd Jobs. Here we are with another episode of Dagon. I forgot to upload the last episode, so I was going to record this because I could go back to Canaan Bridge of Spirits, but this is a lot more interesting a story, so let's continue here. So yeah, last time we got on a ship. This is around World War One, I believe. And we escaped that ship, or became a stowaway or something. Either way, we're now on an island filled with a bunch of rotting corpses of sea life. And this black inky substance. And we just crawled up a mountain. And I believe we just went into a cave or something.
Definitely analyze. I scrambled with difficulty down the rocks and stood on the gentler slope beneath, gazing into the Stygian deeps, where no light had yet penetrated. All at once, my attention was captured by a vast and singular object on the opposite slope, which rose steeply about 100 yards ahead of me.
Huh.
An object that gleamed whitely in the newly bestowed rays of the ascending moon.
Huh. What do I do? Oh, I go that way? Or is there any trivia somewhere I might have missed? The moon!
That it was merely a gigantic piece of stone, I soon assured myself.
It's a pretty odd shape for a giant stone.
But I was conscious of a distinct impression that its contour and position were not altogether the work of nature.
Yeah.
A closer scrutiny filled me with sensations I cannot express.
Oh, is that... What was that?
For despite its enormous magnitude, and its position in an abyss which had yawned at the bottom of the sea since the world was young,
Alright.
I perceived beyond a doubt that the strange object was a well-shaped monolith,
Looks like
whose
it.
massive bulk had known the workmanship and perhaps the worship of living and thinking creatures. Dazed and frightened, yet not without a certain thrill of the scientist's or archaeologist's delight, I examined my surroundings more closely.
That's what I'm trying to do right now. Yeah. Usually when it comes to Lovecraft, it's very
Now near the zenith,
usually when it comes to Lovecraft, the stories are always very interesting.
shone weirdly and vividly above the towering steeps that hemmed in the chasm.
What's the design on it?
And revealed the fact that a far-flung body of water flowed at the bottom, winding out of sight in both directions, and almost lapping my feet as I stood on the slope.
Huh.
Across the chasm, the wavelets washed the base of the cyclopean monolith, on whose surface I could now trace both inscriptions and crude sculptures.
Huh.
The writing was in a system of hieroglyphics unknown to me, and unlike anything I'd ever seen in books.
I thought that was a human shape at first, but no, it's an octopus in like this vortex something.
Consisting for the most part of conventionalized aquatic symbols such as fishes, eels, octopi, crustaceans, mollusks, whales, and the like. Several characters obviously represented marine things which are unknown to the modern world,
Yeah.
but whose decomposing forms I had
That is
observed
true. I believe
on the
there's
ocean-risen plain.
not recently, but years ago when I was younger, they discovered a new squid or something. I believe they called it the colossal squid. Or I might be getting this wrong. I remember they had two very long tentacles, and they had the short little sucker tentacles, I guess.
It was the pictorial carving, however, that did most to hold me spellbound.
Does not surprise me. Aha! Lore. Dagon contains of many themes and storytelling methods that Lovecraft developed in his later works, such as telling the story through carving at the Mountain of Madness, and the Nameless City, journals and characters notes, the Shadow of Time, the Haunter of the Dark, islands emerging from the ocean, the Call of Cthulhu, or fictional beings and deities based on real events, mythologies. Mygon in the Whisper of Darkness. Oh, Migo in the Whisper in Darkness. It's also considered the origin of popular Cthulhu mythos. Some of Lovecraft's other stories also conclude in a manner similar to Dagon, but let's get the details in order not to spoil the ending. Thank you. It's actually something I've learned in this game is that I never, like I said in the first episode, I never did a big deep dive on who Lovecraft was. I mainly looked at his writings, and through his writings, I thought he was like a nihilist or something. But through when I was in the last episode, there's a lot of information on who Lovecraft was as a person. I was like, he's nothing like I thought he was. So that's interesting.
Visible across the intervening water, on account of their enormous size, were an array of bas-reliefs whose subjects would have excited the envy of a doré. I think that these things were supposed to depict men, at least a certain sort of men, though the creatures were shown disporting like fishes in the waters of some marine grotto, or paying homage at some monolithic shrine which appeared to be under the waves as well. Of their faces and forms I dare not speak in detail, for the mere remembrance makes me grow faint.
Yep.
Grotesque beyond the imagination of a Poe or a Bulwer.
Wow. The top one on the top is can't see a Star Wars character. Like, you know those that erase aliens with the big nose? Like an elephant seal?
They were damnably human in general outline, despite webbed hands and feet, shockingly wide and flabby lips.
Huh.
Glassy, bulging eyes, and other features less pleasant to recall. Curiously enough, they seem to have been chiseled badly out of proportion with their scenic background.
Huh.
For one of the creatures was shown in the act of killing a whale, represented as but little larger than himself. I remarked, as I say, their grotesqueness and strange side.
Oops.
But in a moment decided that they were merely the imaginary gods of some primitive fishing or seafaring tribe. Some tribe whose last descendant had perished eras before the first ancestor of the Piltdown or Neanderthal man was born.
Who knows? What is... Oh, he's off that little wreath thing we're looking at there. Aha! I barely saw that. Lovecraft would often use his latest scientific discoveries as inspiration for his work. He would even update his stories at the last moment in order to make sure they reflected the latest breakthroughs. Unfortunately, this method was not without its flaws. After Lovecraft's death, the Piltdown Man discovery mentioned in Dagon turned out to be a paleanthropological fraud. In 1912, Charles Donson, an amateur archaeologist, announced that he had discovered a missing link between ape and man. The fossilized remains of previously unknown early human. Years later, they turned out to be forgery. By that point, the fraud had already managed to negatively affect the early research of human evolution. In the year when the discovery took place, the majority of the scientific community believed that Dawson indeed found the missing link. In 1953, Time magazine published an evidence proving that Dawson was a conman. Turned out that the fossils of the previously unknown early human consisted of a human skull, the jaw of an orangutan, and chimpanzee teeth. Oh, okay. So that's where Lovecraft got his idea. Huh, fascinating.
Awestruck at this unexpected glimpse into a past beyond the conception of the most daring anthropologist, I stood musing whilst the moon cast queer reflections on the silent channel before me.
Huh.
Then, suddenly, I saw it.
What I see? Oh, the ripples in the middle of the lake. Oh crap! Oh, the pond.
With only a slight churning to mark its rise to the surface, the thing slid into view above the dark waters.
What is this? Oh, I'm actually getting
Vast,
goosebumps.
Polyphemus-like and loathsome, it darted like a stupendous monster of nightmares to the monolith,
I got goosebumps.
about which it flung its gigantic scaly arms, the while it bowed its hideous head and gave vent to certain measured sounds.
Oh, my vision's going. Oh,
I
and
think
there's my
I
vision.
went mad then. Of my frantic ascent of the slope and cliff, and of my delirious journey back to the stranded boat, I remember little.
It's very interesting. There's something about Lovecraft that I don't think Lovecraft came up with himself. It's something older than Lovecraft, but there were these beings you can't look at because just gazing onto their like true form would drive you insane. Like not just actually no, that's Christianity. Remember you guys know about the bloody hell archangels, I believe they're called, Michael, Gabriel, even God himself. That you can't look at their true form without going insane or fearing them. Yeah, like I believe that's also like I think it's something older than Christianity where that mentions stuff like that. Even I do the same thing in my own books. Not all the time, just when it calls for it, depending on which book I'm working on. That's only if one of these beings, eldritch horrors or old ones, appear.
Oddly, when I was unable to sing.
Huh. So I'm just looking for little trivia points here and there.
I have indistinct recollections of a great storm sometime after I reached the boat. At any rate, I know that I heard pearls of
Oh, the octopus is out of the
and
ground
other
now.
tones which nature utters only.
It got out of the
in
ground.
its moods.
That's an extinct animal. Oh, there's my vision again.
When I came out of the shadows, I was in a San Francisco hospital,
Alright.
brought thither by the captain of the American ship which had picked up my boat in mid-ocean. In my delirium, I had said much, but found that my words had been given scant attention. Of any land upheaval in the Pacific, my rescuers knew nothing. Nor did I deem it necessary to insist upon a thing which I knew they could not believe.
Aha! The journalist. Lovecraft is a prominent figure in the world of amateur journalism in 1915. He started publishing his own journal called The Conservative, which included political and social commentary, poetry, short stories, and literary criticism written by him and other authors. Howard was a skilled wordsmith, but he also took criticisms to heart, which resulted in his decision to step away from writing poetry and concentrate on weird fiction again. For the first time since his teenage years, Dagon, published in 1919, is one of his short stories written during that period. In this example of The Conservative, the master of horror fiction explains his attitude towards the warfare and idea of world peace. Why any sane human being can believe that in the possibility of universal peace is more than the conservative can fathom. One or more nations would undoubtedly retain secret armaments, and at the proper time take advantage of their more altruistic and less astute contemporaries in wild career of conquest against the unarmed victims. No country is, or even can be above warfare until basic impulses of the human animal shall have miraculously changed. He is right on that. Humans are constantly living in fears. Oh wow, I didn't see that. You barely see. I barely noticed that. Right there. The atheist. Lovecraft considered himself an atheist to the absolute materialist. He had the attribute of partly to his own, which he attributed partly to his early childhood, interest in astronomy, and science in general. In his own words, I am indeed an absolute materialist, so far actual belief goes, with not a shred of credence in any form of supernaturalism, religion, spiritualism, transcendentalism, metaphysicosis, or immortality. All I can say is that I think it's damned unlikely that anything like a central cosmic will, a spirit world, or eternal survival of personality exists. They're more preposterous and unjustified. They are more preposterous and unjustified of all of the guesses which can be made out of the universe, and not enough of a hair splitter to pretend that I don't regard them as errant and negligible moonshine. In theory, I am an agnostic, but pending the appearance of it's really hard because everything's caps. Appearance of the radical evidence, I must be classified, practically, and professionally as an atheist. Sources: Against the Religion, Atheist writing of H.P. Lovecraft. Mythos: The Myths, Tales of H.P. Lovecraft, Robert E. Howard. Ha! Did not know that about him. Huh? What?
Once I sought out a celebrated ethnologist and amused him with peculiar questions regarding the ancient Philistine legend of Dagon, the fish god.
Huh. What an interesting little place right here. There's that. Was there something on the table? Of course there is. Dagon. Or Dagon. Dagon, probably, was the main deity of the Philistines, worshipped throughout the Middle East as an ancient god of fertility and crops. In Hebrew, the word Dagon was a common noun for grain. A ruler, Akkad, Mesopotamia, oh cool, chose him as patron saint of their war conquest. He also appeared as the judge of the dead in the Syrian poem of the underworld prisoner wanderer in the Babylonian texts. He's often mistakenly taken for a fish god due to the wrong interpretation of his name, as in Hebrew, Dag means fish, or Dag, I guess it would be. In H.P. Lovecraft's work, Dagon is an underwater deity ruling over the deep ones in a humanoid race with fish traits that reside in the ocean. He is worshipped by a secret cult called the Esoteric Order of Dagon. Huh. Fascinating. Actually, same thing with Beelzebub. Beelzebub is also a Philistine, I believe. Yeah, Philistine. Huh, fascinating.
But soon perceiving that he was hopelessly conventional, I did not press my inquiries.
Oh! The marketer. Lovecraft's attempts to find a job in 1925 were influenced by the advice he received from friends, and among others. It's not a comma or a period, that's a comma. It's really hard because it's all caps, you guys can see that. He started freelancing for a marketing magazine. We write down announcements and commercials. Feel free to judge his copywriting skills for yourself. That's the back of the way. From an ad to Curtis Woodwork. Curtis Woodwork embraces both the unusual structural units and cleverest I can't talk. Contrivances of the built or permanent furniture, such as bookcases, dressers, buffets, cupboards. Every model is conceived and created with the purest art, ripest scholarship, and mellowest craftsmanship, which energetic enterprise can command and conform rigidly to the architecture of each. Some allergies are starting to flare up all of a sudden. Type of home and cost, considering the quality of the amazing low, and a trademark on the individual pieces that prevents any substitution by careless contractors. Source. Alright. Lovecraft Studies, Volume 7, Number 1, H.P. Lovecraft, S.T. Joshi. Oh, August Derleth and Cthulhu Mythos. August Derleth was an American writer and anthologist. He was also befriended Lovecraft and published many of his works through the company's Arkham House. Although he greatly contributed to the population of the author's works, after his death he's surrounded by numerous controversies. One of his most questionable decisions was involved in introducing the good and versus evil doctrine. Derleth, did I say that the wrong time? Was a devout Catholic to the Cthulhu mythos, which contrasted with Lovecraft's view of the world, and his approach to cosmic horror was a result of the author's work, often misunderstood and misinterpreted in today's culture. True. It's also worth noting that Lovecraft was never really interested in creating a mythology, and the Cthulhu mythos was coined by Derleth after the author left the mortal plane. Alright. But even H.P. Lovecraft had got his like I said earlier, his ideas from even earlier, like, actual mythos and earlier works. This is kind of interesting. It's like where someone who was devoted Catholic, he's still, because back then you gotta remember, like, people who were religious and people who weren't religious didn't really mix well, and so for someone who's a devout Catholic, posting something like Cthulhu, which would be considered, you gotta remember, D&D was considered devil's worship for the longest, and even still is to this day, by devout Christians. So that's something you gotta understand. Like, this Cthulhu mythos would greatly be considered like pagan work back then. I'm gonna turn around. Where'd the music go? Huh. Oh, that is the end of the episode. Alright, but I thank you all for watching today's episode of Odd Jobs. If you guys want to see more of Dagon, please let me know in the comments below. Again, I may just record this myself because usually I don't get feedback on any of these videos. But yeah, everything else for watching today's episode of Odd Jobs. We'll see you next time. Have a good day.